Hey everybody, welcome back to the studio. We're going to do another behind the scenes here for you. We're going to bring you into my paint build area. Customize. It's like getting into a cockpit. I got my Giddy printer right over here to my left. You can maybe hear it printing. And I wanted to bring you in on the top-down cam, and I'll go over some of the things I've been working on here in the studio. And I had a request to show my little cheater for my Black Seas ships. Now I'm working on my last three. They are going to be French, and I couldn't find a real cheater code out there online where I could maybe buy certain type of rigging that I could just glue on. But what I decided to do is I'm rigging the ships enough that they look rigged, but not to the extent of the rigging that you will find in the rule book. I would say I've cut the rigging in half, but it still looks amazing. And I did the easier part of the rigging, right? And I'm going to show you just one of the little tricks that I basically discovered for myself, a really important tip. Now, I was going to use, if you pay attention to all my videos, which I highly recommend you do, there's all kinds of good stuff in there. I was going to use the Tamiya cement with the little brush, the dippy brush. That didn't work. It turned out that stripped the paint off. So I ditched that right away and went straight back to the Bob Smith super glue. It's got that fine tip and a toothpick. Now, one of the main videos out there from Warlord Games shows the gentleman putting the glue out, and then he dips the toothpick into the glue and then puts it on spots on the masts. No, that's not the way to do it, because your super glue is going to start to dry up and get all goopy, right? So I'm going to show you what I did. Now let's go into the top-down camera here, and you see here I have my French frigate. Now I'm going to show you the difference I've made in the progress that I made between one of my first ships, which was my British frigate, and you guys can see here that the lines are a little loose. As I worked my way up the mast, I was pulling these strings a little too tight, right, which made these get loose. The trick on that is don't pull too tight. Just, you'll get the hang of it. Just loop, and this is one of my tricks, guys. As I did my rigging from this point up to here, and then I looped it, then I looped it, and then I looped it. But before I looped it up to the tops of the mast in this case, I put a little dab of super glue right there. And you'd be surprised, once you get that thread that comes with the kit in contact with super glue, it starts to stick and hold right away, right? That's one of the secrets, right? So before you string it up, now you notice I'm going to bring out the book. I'm going to show you what the book showed you. Now the book is showing you just string from there and then come up diagonally. What I did was I just went up, looped it across, and I did the same thing from this point, this point, this point. And that's my cheater rig. It still makes it look great. The only one you have to do separately is this middle one. This is the frigate, of course. You do it a little bit differently for the, in my case, the brigs. And you loop them down and you do up like this, so your rigging should be going this way. Then at the very end, there's the little holes on the side that you put the thread through, then you loop them up. You do one here and one here. Now I'm going to show you what I did. I didn't do that. I didn't do two. I just did one. That cut that rigging in half. So here's my pirate ship. Now this is after I have been rigging a few ships, and you can see how much better my rigging got, how much tighter the lines are. I'm pretty sure you can see that on the blue. So that's what I did, guys. Now, someone out there is going to say, oh, yeah, that's not rigged. That's not the way you're supposed to rig it. But look how good that still looks. I basically did a line up to the very top of this mast and down to the other side as you tie through the little hole. I did the same thing here, the little hole up to this top of this mast. Same thing for the rear mast, the aft mast. Then I put my rat lines on, right? Then I started gluing my sails on, right? I put the flag up here instead of off of the aft sail because I want to be able to identify the ships on the board. I just think it looks better. I don't care if it's not historically accurate in that regard. So that's how I did it. But when you put these foresails on, you'll do a line of super glue along here and use your tweezers and stick it on that thread, and it just like sticks right away. So whatever they use for the thread, which is probably a plastic-based thread, right? It sticks very quick. But you can see that drastically cut down the amount of rigging that I had to do, but it still looks great on the board. That's what I call tabletop standard Black Seas rigging, guys. If you don't like it tough, rig them the whole way. This is how I did it, okay? Worked out great. I like it. It looks great. Even my wife liked it. She says, I said, look at all these ships I did. How do you like them? She says, oh, aren't those cute? Those look like a lot of fun. So here's the other tip. Now this is tip number 2 to help you guys out. Now, you may see on other videos, but don't be afraid to use a lot of extra thread to do your knot. So get you a lot of thread. You got a ton of thread on this spool, guys. More than enough to string these ships. The trick is you need enough thread, A. B, I've got 2 types of tweezers I use to this process. One has the hook or the bend on the end. I highly recommend these. These were really handy. And the fine tip that I used mainly on the brigs. They're a lot smaller ship, a little more dainty. I still use the same rigging technique, right? I rigged the line from here to here. You got to stay above the masts. You're going to stay above, not below. Keep them above on the tops of the masts. Or the yard arms, I should say. Then I started from here, strung up to here. I went to this point. I strung up to the middle, and the very end, I strung up to the very top. That's technically not the way they're supposed to be rigged, but that's the way I rigged them. That was my cheat. And you can see how it turned out. It looks great. The average person that comes to play, or you play with, I promise is not going to notice. And it's going to cut your threading down, I would say 50%. Okay, so you can get through these a little quicker, and it's not going to be so frustrating. And then, face it, guys, there's some guys out there, I've seen videos where they didn't do any of the rigging and the ship still looked great. Okay, so if you really don't want to fool with it, go for it. So let's say we're rigging this. First of all, you want to point your ship to the right. The bow should be to the right. I won't say a couple of my first ships I had the rigging going the wrong direction, but hey, by the next ship I got it right. So what we're going to do is I'm going to rig a line from here to the top of the yard arm, right, to the crow's nest. And all you have to do, guys, is you don't make your knot and then try to put it around. You just go around like this. Do a simple, you don't have to make a full knot. All you have to do is tie it around one time, one loop. I would do this. I would take my tweezers and go through the loop. I would grab the thread. Trust me, it's a lot easier this way than to try to do it by hand. You grab that piece, you pull it, make sure you're under your yard arm, pull it through, get it down to the bottom. Then what you do is you put a tiny dab of glue right there at the very base of the mast. Then you take your toothpick After you've spread it out, you do your dab of super glue, then you pull this tight over the super glue. Use your fingers at this point, right? And take your super glue. If there's a kind of a bigger blob, take that super glue, spread it out a little bit with your toothpick. And if you have a little extra on your toothpick, go ahead and take that extra blob of super glue and just put it on one side of the crow's nest, because once you bring this up like this, guys, you just bring him up, because by this time the bottom's going to be solidified. That's not going to move because of that super glue. Then you come up, all you have to do is loop that mast one time and hold it like that, and that super glue holds like you wouldn't believe. Right, it's not going to stay. This side's not going to stay down because I didn't put super glue on there, obviously. But this side will be fixed. Then you do that. Then you let it sit. After you do your next mast, excuse me, come down here, string another line up by the crow's nest. And when you're done, you can either take your fiskars. I use these fine tip fiskars, work good, and you snip off the excess. Or you can even use your X-Acto blade and just go, and it just pops right off. That's the secret to rigging these boats so that's not so frustrating. You've got to use super glue. You've got to use a type of super glue that has a nice point to it. And then every couple of ships, I just take a paper towel and make sure that that tip of that super glue is nice and clean, right? So I can really get that drop nice and fine right where I want it. And then I use my toothpick to spread it out. And then I keep that paper towel close by, and I just wipe off the tip. Put the toothpick on a little holder I have, one of those little Gatorade caps, and I just work my way around, and I do that throughout the whole ship. That's the trick. So I'm going to do these French ships today, and then I'm ready. I've got 10 total ships. I got the freebie ship I got with my Wargames Illustrated. I'll show you that real quick because I had to let me get him. See, I already had a base built for him. I just haven't put anything shiny on the top. But I had to make these sails out of just cardboard or a poster card. And all I did was, while I was doing one of the other frigates, I took the sails and I just traced around them with a mechanical pencil. And I just cut out new sails, because this free one that came with the Wargames Illustrated did not come with sails, and did not come with flags. I had enough flags with my starter kit, so I put flags on him, right? Typically you put the nationality flag here, which it shows over here because your wind's blowing from behind and you can't see what rig of ship it is, so I just put it up high where you can easily see it. It's just going to make it easier, especially for new players who come, to identify their fleet and not get confused. You can see I did the British ochre yellow, which I just used buff, Vallejo buff, and then my pirate ships I just did in brown with like a light brown line. So it made the pirate ships easier to do. I still kept their skiffs white, since I did a base coat of white. That helped cut down on some more painting. So that's it with the ships. That's my tip on the ships, guys. That's what I did. It actually made it enjoyable. It was nice and peaceful. A couple days I had nothing on down here, no radio, no anything. It was just nice and peaceful, and I just rigged away. The tweezers make it 9-day difference when you're using your tweezers to pull the knots through. And again, you just have to loop it one time. You don't have to tie a whole knot, right? You just need it to hold long enough for that super glue to stick to it, which happens almost instantaneously. All right. Now, 3D printer. I can't say enough good things about this Giddy 3D printer, guys. It's amazing. This thing has been a little workhorse. It just prints and prints and prints. So yeah, some of the first things I printed, for those of you that may have seen this on my old Facebook. You can find these now over on Discord group. It's right below in the description. Click on it. It'll get you right over to Discord in my group. Now, these are my Black Seas card holders. You can see here I've got these little pins I printed in black. I printed the card holders in red, as you can see, and they work perfect. And I made it so that I could print all these little pins. I did 2 batches, and I got a bunch of these little baggies full of markers, the little dudes and the little sails, right? And I put them in little baggies. I got, I think, with some other model kit. I stash them over here when I have little baggies. So I built up a little baggie stash. So I did that. I did the card holders. I did 10 of them. I have 10 ships. I got 9 with my starter box, plus the 1 I got with my War Games Illustrated, and I got 10 card holders. Now, one of the next things, my son is a financial analyst. We're both very big into the markets. Not that we don't do that GameStop stuff. We don't play a market like that. Anyway, I did him a bull, and I did this. As you turn this around, he looks a little copper, and then he looks a little bronze. It's like some of those fancy car paints. When you change it around, the color kind of shifts and changes. And then I did a nice shiny top coat. I think it turned out great. This was one of my first prints after I did my card holders. And what I did was I mixed some bronze and some copper together, 50-50. So first I did, he was red. I did him with the red PLA. So I did a gray top coat primer with my airbrush. Then I came back through with a black wash, right, to get that dark undertone like bronze gets you when it's sitting on Wall Street. This is an exact replica of the one on Wall Street. Then I started doing thin coats of dry brush until I got the consistency that I wanted, and I think it turned out great. It looks like it was cast in bronze, but as it spins around, and I'm going to give it to him here in a couple weeks when we go up to celebrate his birthday in Cleveland, take him out to dinner, or lunch rather, he can put that on his desk. My daughter, the ballerina, studying to be a professional dancer. I made her a ballerina. You can see how great that turned out. I did end up putting pins down here. I just use a paper clip and cut it down to size, drilled holes in the base of the feet, and in the base, the base of this. I haven't done any painting on her yet. I still got just a little bit of cleaning up to do with a file, but you can see the details on that are freaking amazing. You can even see the straps for her tutu and for her onesie, or her, I forget what they call those. I should know, I bought enough of them over the years. So that's going to turn out nice. Just a little cleaning up with some with a file, and I'll start painting her. You notice now by this point I had wised up. I got off of the red PLA right away, and I ordered some of the light gray. This is Hatchbox. I could not find the Giddy. Everybody was out of stock of the Giddy PLA, but I went to the Hatchbox PLA, which is the light gray. You notice most of the model kits come in gray, and that's the great base color. It's easy to cover with any color of primer. It's not going to pop through, and then I can start doing her tutu and her well, I can tell you one thing. I know these ballet shoes, they wear through, and they're $100 a pair, and they have to be custom, so you have to take her to a local ballet shop. Well, in school they have a person that comes in and fits their shoes for their program. So I just love how those turned out. It just really turned out great. On to the next thing. Now, part of my upcoming game, February 20th, Black Seas. My mat is coming from Lithuania today by FedEx. It was stuck in France for 2 weeks, and customs, but they finally got it through, thank the Lord, because I was looking at having to buy a Frontline gaming mat from Amazon that would have come in a few days, but it wouldn't have been the double-sided, it wouldn't have been the Caribbean Sea, which I wanted, which is a lighter color. So I'm like, whew, that saved me 75 bucks, because I got a group game coming February 20th. I can have things in line, so it's going to be here today. So one of the things I wanted to do, it's a 6 foot by 4 foot ocean mat on one side. On the other side is the star field, so I can play my X-Wing, my future Armada games, right? So I thought we need to can't just have an open ocean. We got to have something that's kind of an obstacle, like an island, right? So that adds some element to the game. And so what I've come up with, I'm going to take my 1/2-inch pink board, my insulation foam, which I have over here in the pantry. I got a big sheet of it back there, and I think it's a 1-inch thick sheet that I kept back there, so I can go and cut pieces off. I'm going to make an island and then build up like a hill, and on the top of the hill we're going to have Seafort. This was not the greatest print. This was another free print off of Thingiverse. The bowl was Thingiverse, the ballet was Thingiverse, but it's good enough. It's a small scale, so you're not going to see the lines as much. So I'm going to prime him, paint him. Yeah, I don't need to mess with putting cannons up there and stuff, but he's going to be the fort sitting up on the hill overlooking the bay I'm going to make as part of my island. And then down in the bay area, I'm going to make a little village. You see that little house? I scaled it to fit and scale with the fort, and I'm going to print a bunch of these. And this is another Thingiverse. Now I could make this for 15mm, this little house. Get into focus. This little house, I could make it 28mm if I wanted to. So that's the cool thing with these printer software, the Giddy printing software, is you can scale these buildings up or down. And I had to do a couple prints. I'm going to show you the smaller print. I thought was going to be a little too small. You can see that I did the castle smaller compared to the other. And I honestly, guys, I don't really know what the scale is. I'm trying to nail the 1/700th scale. So what I just did was I grabbed one of my ships and I pretended like there was a guy standing on the deck. And I'm like, yeah, that's about the size of a dude walking into this house, right? So that's kind of how I did it. They give you the dimensions on the software, but I think after like a couple prints, this printed in like 5 minutes, and then, or the bigger one. And then what I can do is, they've got several different types of buildings, and what I'll do is I'll just drag those onto the print, and I'll do like 20 of these all in one print. 5 minutes times 20, so it'd be about an hour for 20 of these little buildings to print. I print them facing up. That's the other thing. You can print things facing down, you can turn them around, you can make them bigger, smaller, right? So you can change the orientation. Like I did with the pins on the card holders, I could print a bunch of the men pins and a bunch of the sail pins, and all I had to do is keep opening that same file, and it would put them, and I would just put them where I wanted them on the print bed, and then boom, you're ready to go. So I could print all the houses for the village off of my Thingiverse files onto my Giddy software. And in an hour I'll have a little village, and all I have to do is paint 2 colors. I'm going to hit them with a couple different shades of brown. I'll do the roofs in a few different colors. It shouldn't be take long. Wash them with a wash. I'm done. I don't have to get into all that nitty-gritty detail. At this scale, it's just not necessary. So we've got that. Next, one of these is printing right now in the printer. It takes about 4 hours to print these. And something else I'm learning, I've already printed 2 of these Barbarian Huts. As a subscriber to my Discord group pointed out, you could use these for Zulu Wars. You could use these as barbarian huts for like Hail Caesar. They're pretty multi-purpose. This is the file I went after. There's several on there on Thingiverse for free. Now they had it set up on the file so it was printing upside down, and all I had to do in my Giddy software is rotate it. Here's another thing I'm learning. Okay, now initially, like with the ballerina and the bull, you have to print what's called supports, and all it is really thin strips of PLA that it will build up, and then when the model's done, they just pull off, so that when you have these steep overhangs like this, or like the arms, it helps give them support, right? And it helps keep the printer printing all on one plane, right? Well, I did that with this first print, and I had got up this morning and I pulled all of the supports, because what it did is it prints supports all the way down for these overhangs. And I thought, let's print this second one without any supports. So I went back in. I have not hooked this up to Wi-Fi yet. It's on the list. I haven't done it yet. Otherwise, you could just send your file straight to the printer. I think I'm going to do that next after I make this video. I did no supports on this file, and I printed it, and you see how beautifully it printed up. So I don't have to pull any supports off. I have virtually no cleanup. But this is what I wanted to point out, like I did on another video. You see how there's just a slight little line on these huts, and it did it on both huts. But it tells you that's in the file. It's not the printer. You don't have to make any adjustments. The printer is printing exactly duplicate copies to the fact that, to the point where it's exact. That just blows me away how good this printer is. So that's how detailed this printer is. So this, what, 2-3 colors a wash, maybe 2 colors in a wash, boom, you got yourself a hut. It uses very little PLA. I got the big spool. It's the 1.75 hatch box, and this is like the 4th or 5th thing I've printed with this gray, and it's still like, I don't know, 90% of the spool left. You got to keep in mind, when it makes a layer and goes around, it's a very small little bead. Oh, there goes my light. It's a very small little bead, and then the inside of here, that's not solid PLA, right? It makes like a checker box pattern, right? And you can set that on your software, how much you want. It's called infill, how much you want it more dense or you don't want it more open. It'll save on PLA. Just like when I decided not to do supports on this, with the supports, that saves me PLA if I don't have to put supports. Now you notice on Thingiverse, the creator of the file, a lot of times the best creators, like the ones for the ballerina and stuff, they'll tell you on there no supports necessary, right? They'll even have some of the buildings broken down to, if you print it at these dimensions, it'll be 6mm scale. If you print the building at these dimensions, which you can set those dimensions on your software. It's super easy. You just double click, type in the dimensions that you want, or you drag and pull on the picture of the file, and it will, you know what I'm saying, it'll scale up or down your model. Get it to kind of where you want it to be on the print bed. Boom, you're in business. That's how easy it is, guys. So if you're on the fence and getting a printer, $350 US this cost me. Amazon, it came in less than 3 days, and it had everything in the box I needed to get started. Within 30 minutes, I was making ship cards, right? In 30 minutes, I was making that ship card. Flawless, printed perfectly. So, for what it's worth, that's what I'd go through it for straight away. I wouldn't even think twice about it. Alright guys, that's basically all I've got for you today. Thanks for tuning into the channel. Hit like, hit subscribe. Please share my videos. I may be getting shadow banned from YouTube. But anything to spread the channel would be much appreciated. And please get on over to my Discord group. We're going to build that thing up. The whole Facebook debacle is actually turning out to be a blessing in disguise, because it turns out that most of the gamers have already been on Discord, and I'm the one that's late to the party, right? So those of you that have gotten on my Discord, we're already chatting. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure talking to you guys. And remember, we're ramping up this podcast deal. I've done 2, kind of mediocre. I'm still playing around with the software, still getting to learn things. It's not perfect yet, but we're gonna get that thing cranking, and it's gonna be a humming little fun machine for all of us guys to connect with each other and to share the hobby and just have some great camaraderie all around the world all at once. It's a great thing. All right, have a good one, and I'll see you next time. Ciao.